Hello, and welcome back to the Alpha Male Podcast. The podcast where we talk about being an alpha male with God at the center, the Judeo-Christian worldview and values, made in His image, strong, dominant, and in control, without apology for that. Today's episode of the Alpha Male Podcast is going to be a little bit different. There's going to be no bio, really nothing like that. Just going to talk about a few different things going on in life, in the podcast, in the Alpha Male Podcast. And this is intended for people that listen to the podcast regularly. So if this is your first time listening, you may want to go back and listen to a different episode. You're certainly welcome to listen, but this really mostly applies to people that have been listening. Lately, been very blessed with people contacting and asking questions and inquiring about the podcast and about me and life, and that's fantastic. A city set on a hill. And they say for every one person that asks, I've heard it said, I don't know if it's true or not, that many other people want to ask. So I figured I would just have the discussion here with you men in our virtual tribe. So if you listen for any length of time and paid attention to the mentionings of the goings-on and things, the great things that God has done in my life, you'll know that recently, in the past year, I was persecuted out of a very good job. And I don't say that lightly. I do plenty of things to screw up and mess up things in life. But if you think that Christian persecution is something of the past, it happens all the time. And it certainly happened to me recently. Whether they were persecuting because I was Christian, they certainly persecuted me for doing the right thing. I was trying to be pressured into doing the wrong thing and to do something that wasn't just and wasn't right, and to pick on somebody unfairly. And I refused to do it. And thereafter, I lost my job. And you know what? No regrets. No regrets for doing the right thing. For isn't it written, "Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." In the Gospel of Matthew. But that's okay. I didn't know how. I didn't know exactly when. And often we're waiting on God. It takes longer than we would like. But I knew that God would take care of me. He always does. And He, just like it is written, is abundant in mercy and gave me more than I could ask or even think. He has blessed me with a great new job. I manage a firearms and training company in the Southwest. That's about all I'll say about that. Unless you're a patron, people on Patreon and patrons, they know where I work and things like that. Because I figure if they trust me with their money, then I ought to be able to trust them. But the business, I have a great boss. I've been very blessed. But they're not affiliated with the podcast, so I try to keep them out of it. But just be assured that God still provides. He is rich in mercy. More than I could ask or think. I have a great job. You'll know that for a while I lived off-grid, and I didn't mind that, living off-grid out in the wilderness when I was in between jobs. In fact, I was quite enjoying it. But a man ought to be able to provide for himself and his family. Not only did I get a good job, but I got a free place to stay. And if you listen any amount of time, you know I'm into survival and being prepared, watching and being ready. Not only did I get a free place to live, but a free place with free solar, free 1,500-gallon water reserve tank. I am indeed a very, very blessed man. That hasn't been the first time I've lost a job for the sake of following Christ, or even close family members for the sake of following Christ. But no regrets. For it is also written, Jesus replied, "And I assure you that everyone who has given up house or brothers or sisters or mother or fathers or children or property for my sake and for the good news will receive now in return 100 times many houses, brothers, sisters, mothers, children, and property, along with persecution, and in the world to come that person will have eternal life. You'll find that in the Gospel of Mark. And I tell you from firsthand, real world experience, that God's word is true. He doesn't lie. So that's a little bit of what's going on personally. I get questions about that, and I'm humbled that anybody listens to these podcasts, that you want to be a part of this virtual tribe. I feel like I should be open and discuss those things with you. So there's a career update. How about something a little bit more lighthearted? A puppy update. You guys have been listening. You listen to the Alpha Male podcast about alpha dogs. You know that recently I was blessed with a new puppy, Alexander Hamilton, a Rhodesian Ridgeback, bred to hunt lions in Rhodesia. Well, hopefully you'll be happy to hear we went on our first actual hunt today. We went out before, but by actual hunt, I mean we killed things and ate them. And that was pretty awesome. By we went hunting, I mostly mean that I went hunting and killed things, and he kind of came over after I killed them and ate them. But I have to remember, he's 3 months old. I think he's 14 weeks old. He's growing like a weed, as they say. He is healthy and happy. He loves sitting in front of the heater. He loves cuddling up with my wife. She is much more on the physical affection side than I am, and so is he. Actually, one of the reasons I picked him is because he seemed to be one of the most physically affectionate, and that's what my wife wanted. And this is her first dog. She didn't grow up with dogs. She had a couple of criteria, and I tried to do well, and she really loves that dog. For not ever being a dog person before and being against dogs for years and not wanting us to get a dog for years, she sure loves that dog now. Anyway, Alexander Hamilton is healthy and happy, much bigger than he was when I got him. He's doing well on several commands. The Rhodesian Ridgeback is the first one I've ever had. Normally I run Akitas for hunting and for protection. If you want to hear more about dog breeds, you can go back and listen to that Alpha Dog episode. But normally I run Akitas. But he's a little bit different, a little bit more, I wouldn't say hard to train. He's just far different than most other dogs that I've trained. I have to be a little bit more patient, a little bit more crafty in the training. But that's okay. I like a challenge. I didn't get a dog that was eager to please. I didn't get a Labrador. I didn't want a Labrador. I'm happy to have this Rhodesian Ridgeback. He is, honestly, I grew up, my father raised rabbit dogs, hounds. One of my best friends raised coon dogs and hounds. I've had several dogs throughout my life, and he is, I think, honestly, the best dog I've ever had so far. He is awesome. So there's a puppy update for you. If you've been listening to Alpha Male Podcast, you'll know that we started a new series, Manly Pursuits. We're a couple episodes into that. Let me know whether you like that or not. Like I said, I do this show for you guys, for the tribe. God's blessed me with these experience and knowledge and wisdom, and I try and pass that on. For years, the majority of the time this podcast existed, it costed money to do. And by God's grace, we've recently seen an uptick in patrons and actually making more money than it costs to put out the podcast, which is awesome. It's a great blessing. But I don't do this for money. If I did, I wouldn't have done it for years at a loss. So the point of that is, if you guys like that direction, then let me know. We'll keep going. If you guys want to contact me, you can go to goodshepherdtraining.com. It's the umbrella that houses this podcast and the others. Reach out to me on there and let me know what you'd like or what you don't like. People get on there and let me know something about audio quality or this or that. I'm not under the illusion that anybody listens to this because there's awesome audio quality or awesome effects. For years I just talked into the iPhone and uploaded it, no editing at all, other than kind of pausing when I wasn't talking, if you consider that editing. I don't want to turn this alpha male thing into a gun-only podcast, but I will mention a few things. I imagine a lot of you that listen to Alpha Male also listen to Gunfighter Life. My wife's still on the quest for her next carry gun for running and things like that. I know a lot of feedback I've gotten from you guys is appreciated, but you got to realize that she's only going to carry a gun so big. The Glock 42 is kind of her upper limit. She does a lot of training she's run several marathons. She's got a half marathon coming up. She has a certain way that she likes to run and things she likes to carry, and I'm proud of her for that. I love my wife, and I want to encourage the things that she likes to do that are healthy and that are good for her. And I'd rather her carry something small than nothing. She's not. She had a gun before I met her. She's not opposed to guns, but she's not going to run with her full-size Smith & Wesson M&P. She's not even going to run with an M&P Shield. My go-to running workout gun is a Scandium Frame 357 Magnum that's very light, but very, let's just call it, not a beginner's gun to shoot. She's not going to carry her around with that. So it's really up to her, and I encourage her. I'm happy that she's going to carry something. If you listen also, you'll know that I'm on the quest for a new carry gun as well. I have reluctantly come into the world of optics on handguns, and I think I have tried it out. I was against it for a while. I was kind of a troglodyte. I was kind of stuck in the past and thinking that because I wanted it to be true that they'd never, outcompete iron sights. But I was wrong. And I've been trying it for several months on a practice gun, and I recently put it on what I would consider a full-size fighting handgun duty gun. And I have to admit that it is better for a lot of things. So that means that I'll probably be on a quest for a go-to handgun. I haven't bought a new handgun and well, let's just say I'm not a gun collector. I'm a gun fighter. But the issue is if I get one of my guns cut and let's not say ruined, let's just say dramatically altered, by the time I do that and get an adapter plate and everything else, I'm almost as much as it would cost me to get a new gun. I'm not about just going out and buying another gun. About me and my life, I live very minimally. My wife and I live in a very tiny dwelling. I'm not about having extra stuff, but if I'm going to switch to the red dot, it doesn't really make sense, probably. I may do it, but it doesn't really make sense financially or really feasibly to adapt the gun that I have, because it'll either be a halfway solution or it will cost nearly as much as just getting another gun. But just know I haven't yet. If you listen to the podcast about guns that I was considering, one of the feedback I got was from Steve. He reached out to me, said that the SIG 365s, a lot of those problems were worked out. I do think the 365 XL that we have, the XL I believe is one of the newer models that was supposed to be fixed, but it had a catastrophic failure, meaning it could not be fixed unless it was given new parts from the manufacturer. The trigger spring broke and it had let's just say a catastrophic failure. I'm not about that in a carry gun. I'm really trying to like the SIG 365 and 365 XL. They do come optics ready. You get a lot for the money. I'm just not sold on them yet. I don't know that I would trust my life to them. I don't know that I wouldn't. It's just uncertain. Also, just an update. I've been looking at some other guns. When I said that I was against the Springfield handguns, I really do mean that when I'm talking about the Polymer Striker Fire XD line. I've been against those for a long time. I've never seen one that made it through training that didn't break. At my last job or in law enforcement, and that's an honest statement. I've never seen one make it through intact or without issues. I'm talking like serious issues. The occasional malfunction. I hadn't considered at that time the Springfield 1911s. Those are not made in Croatia like the XD line. If you didn't know a lot of the Springfield handguns, the XD lines, they're made in Croatia. I'm not about that. If they were made in Croatia and they ran fine, I guess I wouldn't really have as big an issue with it. But they do make a 1911 line, and they make some smaller ones that are made in the U.S. I guess if it proved reliable, I wouldn't be against those. Also, the SIG, I was talking about the Polymer Striker Fire handguns. They do make kind of a quasi-baby 1911 called the 938 and the 238. Those are pretty cool. If they come out with one of those in an optics version, perhaps that would be a feasible solution. Also, Kimber makes the Micro 9, which is like a very small 1911. And they do make one that's optics ready. I don't know how reliable that gun is. I haven't really looked into it. I just kind of recently became aware of its existence.
And one that I also left out of the last podcast that I've been looking at is the Ruger. The Ruger, I believe it's called the Max 9. It's small, it's light and handy, and it comes optics ready. And I really like the trigger on that. And another one is the Mossberg. I don't think of Mossberg as a handgun company, but I've been playing with those, and I gotta say I was messing with those right alongside the Sig 365, and I kind of prefer that Mossberg. It's American made. It felt really good. The trigger was heavy but crisp. The Sig trigger is by far lighter, but it's very undefined. It's like dragging a lightweight piano down a dirt road. It might not be heavy, but it certainly, to me, seems choppy and mushy and grindy. I'd much rather have a heavy trigger with a clean break. And I'm not really over concerned about capacity. I don't really care that, the SIG 365 can get whatever round magazines, or the Glock whatever can get super high capacity magazines. I'm much more concerned about getting good hits with my first, second, third round than I am interested in dying with a 15 round mag on my hip. I'm not going to get rid of any gun because of capacity. My go-to, fighting handguns are STI 2011s with a standard 21 round 9mm magazine. But I don't have them primarily for that reason. I have them because they're fantastic guns that shoot very well for me and point naturally, and they happen to have that feature. One of my go-to fighting handguns that I carried even when I was the commander of a tactical team was the Marine Corps SOCOM, 1911, the M45. Had that on my hip today. It often accompanies me on my hip in my day-to-day life even today. And it has, 7, 8 rounds. But I shoot it phenomenally well. Doesn't really concern me. It's not because it's a 45. If I could have got that exact same gun that shot exactly that accurately and was that reliable in 9mm, I would have rather had it 9mm, to be honest. But it's in 45 and it's just fine. Alright, enough about the gun updates. Man does not live by bread alone. There's certainly far, far more important things in life than guns and money and things like that. Recently started something, I guess not recently, it's been a while now, but I have a thing where when I'll watch something on YouTube, and I should back up, so I don't have a television, I don't own a television, I don't watch television. It may be like on at the gym or something in the background. My wife, even before we met, by God's grace, she didn't have a television. This is not part of our life. But what I like to do is get YouTube, and I spend a little bit of money on the YouTube Premium so that I can listen to it without having my phone on. Like I can have it on in the background on my phone like a radio. It doesn't have to be open. And I like to listen to YouTube stuff that teaches me things while I'm working, as long as it's not something that needs like my undivided attention. Like if I'm doing payroll or taxes or something at my job, probably should pay attention to that. But if I'm doing something that's just plugging one thing into another thing that doesn't really require a lot of mental stimulation or focus, then I like to listen to stuff that teaches me something in the background. Well, I recently implemented a thing, by God's grace, I read the Bible in the morning when I wake up, and then at night before I go to bed every day, by God's grace, and hopefully more than that during the day. But I recently implemented where for every YouTube video I watch, I have to read at least one, or listen to, by read I mean like listen to audibly, that's the word, when I'm at work or whatever else I'm doing driving, I audibly listen to a chapter of the Bible on the Bible app. And so it has to be at least one for one. I can listen to more Bible than like YouTube in the background, but it has to be at least one for one. And by God's grace, I just finished the book of Daniel, I think a day or two ago. And I'm listening to it chapter by chapter. So that's a pretty cool thing implemented. And like I said, man does not live by bread alone. One day, whichever comes first, I'll be dead in the ground, or Jesus will return, and it won't matter how many guns I have, or how much money I have, or what my career is. For it is written that every knee shall bow, and every tongue shall confess. Something else going on, a scout belt. So one of the very first episodes we did, and I don't remember if it was on Alpha Male Podcast or Gunfighter Life, but it was on the war belt, or the battle belt. When I was a commander of a tactical team, or you may not know, but when I was a commander of a tactical team to stop active shooters, obviously I had a battle belt, a war belt, I really like that belt. Who knows how many hours I've spent with that thing and a big iron on my hip. Well, obviously I'm not generally doing that day to day anymore, but I still like the belt. And the business owner, which is not me, and I submit to governing authorities because the Bible tells me to, doesn't like the more tactical look of the war belt. So I just wear, a regular belt with my gun and my extra mag and a knife and things. But I've been adapting that war belt, that battle belt, and for what I'm calling a scout belt. So, when I'm out in the wilderness, as I was today with the puppy scouting and hunting, hiking, reconnoitering, recon, my needs are different. So obviously I probably don't need handcuffs and a handcuff key. But what I should have had that I forgot today was a water filter. I went today and put that in the belt, converting a battle belt into a scout belt. Probably don't need a dagger, a tactical knife for when somebody jumps me. I'm out scouting, but I need a bigger knife for things like harvesting agave, building a fire, sawing through a piece of wood, building traps. So I added that to the kit. A fire starter, a compass, because I want to be able to cover a lot of ground, and without carrying a pack or anything like that, I'm trying to get things that'll be handy on the scout belt. And I don't know anybody that does that concept, the scout belt. And that's what I'm calling it. If somebody else has already done it, I don't know. I've never heard of it, but I'm developing this scout belt. So I think an upcoming episode, either here or on Gunfighter Life, will be about the scout belt. Obviously, a gun is on it, but there's way, way more to it than the gun. I'll try and post some, or I guess I already have posted some pictures on Patreon. If you want to support on Patreon, I've talked about it in this episode. You can go to goodshepherdtraining.com, scroll down to the Patreon link for, the fraction of the cost of a box of ammo. The fraction of the normal high-priced city cup of coffee, you could support the podcast. And while we're talking about Patreon, if you're on Patreon or you want to be on Patreon or you're thinking about it, let me know what you would like, because I had a couple ideas. One was merchandise, not necessarily to make money, but just a way for you guys to fly the banner of the Alpha Male podcast. Just a reminder that you're strong, dominant alpha males made in the image of your creator. So maybe just a shirt, like a t-shirt that says alpha, or alpha on the front and male on the back. Or, an alpha male coffee cup, a big giant honking coffee cup. I've thought about doing, like special editions of knives or something like that, like the Buck 110, and have it somehow kind of engraved or customized to say alpha male on it. If like the Buck 110 Slim is kind of the go-to recommendation I have for everybody's everyday carry knife, unless you have a reason for something else. That'd probably be further down the road, but if you guys are interested in the merch, if you guys are interested in something like that, just as I said, to fly the banner, let me know. I don't even honestly really know where to get started on that, but if something the community wants, the tribe wants, I'll try and make that happen. Even if it gets done at cost and you guys just buy, I don't know. Money making's not the primary goal for that. Just if you guys want it. I want to kind of have a way to support the patrons, so if that interests anybody, it's probably quite a bit of work, so if it doesn't interest anybody, I'm not going to do it. But again, let me know. Another thought that I had was for the patrons, everybody on Patreon that supports, maybe having like a WhatsApp chat or like an actual group chat. I'll probably do WhatsApp or a similar one. WhatsApp's what I'm familiar with. But just a thing on your phone, like a text message, like a group chat where you could just get together in ecclesia, just gather around and talk about, knives and guns and being an alpha male and questions about this thing and support on that thing. And I would be part of the chat and I would chime in. But it would be a way for you guys to communicate with each other as part of the alpha male tribe. As people that are part of the community. So if that's something that interests you, let me know. And if it's something that really does not interest you, like if you're a patron, you don't at all want to be part of any kind of WhatsApp or group chat, then let me know that too. I certainly wouldn't make you be part of it or just voluntarily put you in there when you told me you didn't want to be part of it. But if that's something that seems interesting, if you're a patron, then let me know. I don't, unless there's a message that I just didn't see or got deleted or something by accident. I don't believe, to my best of my knowledge, any patrons ever sent me any message that I haven't looked at and hopefully responded to, unless it didn't, require or need a response. If it was somebody legitimately asking or searching for answers, I don't believe, like I said, that anybody's ever gotten a hold of me that was a patron and not gotten that. By God's grace, that will continue to be the case. I'd like to close with a reminder of watch and be ready. No one knows the day or the hour. It is also written, the Son of Man is coming as a thief in the night. Revelation, behold, I am coming like a thief. Blessed is the one who stays awake, keeping his garments on. Also in Thessalonians, for you know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. So watch and be ready, spirit, soul, mind, and body. Watch and be ready. Nobody knows the day or the hour. Certainly not me. But watch and be ready, and that doesn't mean be worried. For Jesus says, do not worry about tomorrow. But Jesus also says, watch and be ready. People think that if you are watching and ready that you're worried about the future, but I would say the opposite is true. If you're ready, if you're already ready and watching, then you're not worried about tomorrow because you're ready for it. So don't worry, but watch and be ready. Stay strong, alpha males. For the tactical tips, like I said, people have been reaching out to me. By God's grace, I'm humbled that anybody listens. But this tactical tip is going to be from one of the listeners, from Steve. Steve says, finally, I love the tactical tips. One that you might want to try is the cheapest way I've found to clean a Glock or similar gun. Common brake cleaner that you buy at the auto parts store. The stuff is brutal on grime and fouling. Spray it on everything and just shake it out. Just a warning though, don't use it on wood ever. It sucks all the oil and moisture out of everything and will destroy a wood stock quickly. Great stuff and costs a fraction of what gun scrubber costs, and the active ingredient is essentially the same. That's what Steve says. I think that that's a great tip. I would throw in the caveat, some gun finishes. I once did a similar cleaner, whether it was brake cleaner or carburetor cleaner, I don't remember, but I sprayed it on a Kimber rifle with a very nice camo finish stock, and it took a big chunk of the camo off. So just make sure that the finish you're using it on, it's safe for. Like he said, the wood. But on something like a Glock where it's just black polymer and steel, yeah, that stuff is great, and it does cost a fraction. So that's a great tip from Steve. With that, guys, thanks for listening. I hope by God's grace you continue to do so. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review of the podcast, some stars. Share with somebody you think could use the podcast. Remember to keep God at the center. Be strong and prove yourself a man. Thanks for listening and have a blessed day.